There is a tiny organ sitting in the dead center of your brain. It is the size of a grain of rice. Ancient Egyptians built entire temples around its symbol. René Descartes, one of history's greatest philosophers, called it the seat of the soul. Modern science has quietly confirmed it produces one of the most powerful psychedelic compounds ever discovered inside the human body. And what you do with your body, a decision you make in private, alone, in moments of weakness, directly determines whether this gland stays calcified and dead or awakens into something extraordinary. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear will permanently change how you see yourself, your energy, and the hidden architecture of your own mind. Deep inside the human brain, nestled between the two hemispheres in a region called the epithalamus, exists a structure so mysterious that civilizations spanning thousands of years whispered about it in sacred texts, carved its image into stone monuments, and protected its secrets like the most precious treasure on earth. This structure is the pineal gland, and it has been sitting inside your skull your entire life, quietly, patiently, waiting for the right internal conditions to fully awaken. Most men walk through their entire existence never once activating this gland to its true biological and spiritual capacity. They drain their life force repeatedly, numb their senses without realizing it, and spend their years wondering why life feels flat, grey, and strangely empty despite everything they have achieved. But a growing number of men, quietly, privately, without fanfare, have stumbled onto a practice so ancient, so biochemically profound, and so deliberately kept out of mainstream conversation that when they experience its effects on their perception, their mental clarity, and their inner vision, they are left permanently changed. That practice is semen retention, and its connection to the pineal gland goes far deeper than anything you have been told. What does holding your seed have to do with a gland in your brain? Stay locked in, because I am going to walk you through the exact biological and energetic chain reaction, step by step. The piece coming up in a few minutes is the part that most people never hear. Do not skip ahead. Let us begin with what the pineal gland actually does, because mainstream science has only scratched the surface, and what lies beneath that surface is nothing short of extraordinary. The pineal gland is a photosensitive endocrine organ. Even though it sits in complete darkness inside your skull, it is profoundly responsive to light cycles, electromagnetic fluctuations, and, this is the critical point, the biochemical environment of your bloodstream. On the surface level, it produces melatonin, which governs your sleep architecture and circadian rhythm. That is the textbook answer. The far more astonishing discovery is that the pineal gland also synthesizes a molecule called dimethyltryptamine, DMT, the very compound that researchers believe is responsible for vivid dreaming, deep meditative visions, and the overwhelming experiences reported during near-death events. Clinical psychiatrist Rick Strassman spent years at the University of New Mexico researching DMT and proposed that the pineal gland may be the body's primary endogenous site of its production. His work, though controversial in certain academic circles, cracked open a door that a growing number of neuroscientists are now quietly stepping through. And here is precisely where semen retention enters the picture, and where this conversation becomes something you will not forget. Right now, I am going to lay out the biological chain, each link in sequence, showing exactly what retention does to your brain chemistry and your pineal function. This is the section most channels skip because they genuinely do not know it. Pay close attention. Semen is not simply a reproductive fluid. From a rigorous biochemical standpoint, it is one of the most nutrient-dense and metabolically expensive substances the human body manufactures. It contains zinc, selenium, vitamin B12, carnitine, fructose, citric acid, phosphorylcholine, spermine, and critically, hormonal precursors and proteins that require enormous biological energy and raw nutritional material to produce. When ejaculation occurs repeatedly and compulsively, the body enters a low-grade but chronic resource-depleted state. zinc alone, lost in measurable quantities with every ejaculation, is a critical cofactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, including those governing neurotransmitter synthesis, testosterone production, and precise hormonal signaling throughout the endocrine system. When zinc is consistently hemorrhaged from the body faster than diet can replenish it, the hypothalamic pituitary axis, the master command center of your entire hormonal network, begins operating below its optimal capacity. When this command center weakens, every downstream gland suffers, including the pineal. Retention reverses this depletion spiral. When the body is no longer redirecting its most precious biochemical resources toward constant reproductive output, it begins redistributing them upward, to the brain, to the endocrine glands, to the neurological infrastructure that governs consciousness itself. This redistribution is not metaphor, it is metabolic reality. Now let us bring in the ancient knowledge, because the most fascinating thing about this connection is that cultures thousands of years before modern biochemistry somehow already knew. In Taoist tradition, semen was called Jing, the most refined and fundamental form of life essence. Taoist sexual masters taught that this essence, when conserved and cultivated through breathwork and meditation, could be directed upward through the spine to nourish the brain and open what they called the upper cinnabar field, located precisely where the pineal gland sits. In the yogic tradition of India, the same energy was called ojas, the finest biological substance produced by the body, refined from food through 7 successive layers of tissue transformation. Ancient texts stated clearly that the brain and the higher sense organs depended on ojas for their full functioning, and that its preservation was the foundation of spiritual and intellectual power. In Egyptian mystery schools, the Eye of Horus, whose anatomical cross-section maps with striking accuracy onto the structures of the human brain, including the thalamus, pineal gland, and optic thalamus, was the supreme sacred symbol. Initiates underwent rigorous practices of celibacy as a prerequisite for higher initiation. These traditions arose independently, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, and yet they arrived at the same conclusion. That is not coincidence. That is convergent truth. I need you to pause here for a second, because what I just described, ancient Taoists, Indian yogis, and Egyptian priests all pointing to the same gland through the same practice, that is not something that gets discussed on mainstream platforms, and there is a reason for that. Keep watching. Modern research is beginning to catch up in ways that are deeply validating for those who have already experienced this firsthand. Studies on long-term meditators, many of whom practice celibacy as part of their discipline, have found measurably higher pineal gland volume, reduced calcification, and elevated melatonin levels compared to control groups. Pineal calcification, which is epidemic in modern populations and begins occurring in childhood due to fluoride exposure, electromagnetic fields, and chronic hormonal disruption, is directly associated with reduced melatonin output and diminished quality of consciousness. What reverses calcification? Improved mineral status, particularly zinc and magnesium, reduced oxidative stress, hormonal optimization, consistent deep sleep, all of which are outcomes reported consistently by men who maintain semen retention over meaningful periods of time. The pineal gland also responds to what scientists call the body's bioelectric field. Research from institutions including the HeartMath Institute has demonstrated that the human body generates measurable electromagnetic fields, and that these fields shift significantly based on internal biochemical and emotional states. Men who practice retention consistently report a shift in their energetic field, a kind of quiet radiance that others perceive before they can even articulate it. This is not mysticism. This may be measurable biology operating at a level our instruments are only beginning to detect. There is also a deeply psychological dimension to this activation that cannot be ignored. The pineal gland is extraordinarily sensitive to the body's stress hormone environment. Chronic cortisol elevation, the biochemical signature of compulsive behavior, pornography consumption, and the shame cycle that follows repeated ejaculation, directly suppresses pineal function and melatonin synthesis. When a man breaks this cycle through retention, something shifts at the psychological root level. The cortisol patterns change. The shame architecture begins to dissolve. The nervous system, no longer locked in a cycle of artificial peak and crash, begins to settle into a steadier, deeper baseline. And in that stillness, in that biochemical quiet, the pineal gland begins to speak. Men describe it differently. Some call it heightened intuition. Others describe vivid, almost cinematic dreams that carry messages and meaning. Some report spontaneous states of clarity during meditation where visual phenomena appear behind closed eyes, geometric, luminous, deeply meaningful. Others simply describe a sense of knowing, a quiet inner compass that suddenly works again after years of static. These are not random experiences. They follow a consistent pattern across thousands of men from different cultures, different backgrounds, different spiritual traditions, and they consistently begin appearing in the weeks and months of sustained retention. This next part, I want you to really hear this, not as information, as something personal. Think about the last time you felt truly clear, truly present, truly like yourself, not the version of you that is tired, distracted, and running on empty, but the version that feels sharp, purposeful, and strangely at peace with who you are. That feeling is not a memory from a lucky day. That feeling is your baseline. That is what you are built for. The practice of semen retention is not about deprivation. It is not about repression. It is not about following ancient rules for their own sake. It is about reclaiming what was always yours, the biochemical, neurological, and spiritual raw material for the most awakened version of yourself. The pineal gland sitting in the center of your brain is not broken. It is not defective. It has not betrayed you. It has simply been starved of the conditions it needs to function fully. And those conditions are within your control, beginning today. Every ancient civilization that achieved greatness in art, in philosophy, in spiritual depth, in physical mastery, practiced some form of this conservation. They did not see it as sacrifice. They saw it as investment, the highest form of investment a man can make in himself. And when you begin to feel the shift, when the dreams start, when the mental fog lifts, when you walk into a room and feel different in a way you cannot fully explain, but everyone around you begins to notice, you will understand in your body and not just your mind exactly what those ancient masters were protecting. This is not the end of the conversation. It is the beginning of yours. If something in this spoke to you, if some part of you recognized a truth you have been circling for a long time without being able to name it, then you are exactly where you are supposed to be. You found this video for a reason, not by accident, not by algorithm alone, because something in you is ready, and I want to be here for that journey with you. If this opened something in you today, please give this video a like. It takes 1 second and it tells me that this kind of deep, honest content is worth continuing to create for you. Share this with one man in your life who you know is searching for something, who is tired, who is brilliant but dimmed, who deserves to know what is possible for him. Subscribe if you want to go deeper. Every video on this channel is built for the man who is done with surface answers and ready for the truth underneath. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. Thank you for caring enough about your own life to spend time seeking real knowledge. That alone sets you apart. See you in the next one. Stay strong, stay awake, and protect your light.